We have come to the last part of Yom Kippur, the Neilah service. But before that, I'd like to do a Haftorah dedicated to Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Lots of congregations are doing this. I'm going to read a little bit of her life story. And I decided to do this partially because the book of Jonah, which we usually read, is really about fleeing God, fleeing justice. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life was the exact opposite, as she chose to embrace justice, to move towards justice, to give to the world, and not to flee. So we'll begin with the blessings over the Haftorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzah v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah habocher b'torah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'mvi'et ha'emet v'tzedek. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the history-making jurist, died at the age of 87. She became only the second woman ever to serve as a justice on the nation's highest court. She struggled against blatant racism throughout her career as she climbed the pinnacle of her profession. She was a lifelong advocate of gender equality. She was fond of joking that there would be enough women on the 9-seat Supreme Court when there were 9. She did not let up in her twilight years, remaining a dissenter on conservative tilting bench, even while her health issues left her sometimes out. Despite maintaining a modest public profile, like most top judges, she became not just a celebrity, but a pop culture heroine. She stood 5 feet tall, but she'll be remembered for who she was. She grew up to Jewish immigrant parents in the Flatbush neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, was born in 1933. Her mom died of cancer the day before she left high school. Ginsburg attended Cornell University, where she met her beloved Marty on a blind date, and the two of them spent over 6 decades together. She says, meeting Marty was by far the most fortunate thing that ever happened to me. The couple married shortly after her graduation from Cornell in 1954 and had a daughter, Jane. While she was pregnant, she was demoted in her job as Social Security at the Social Security office because she was pregnant. That experience led her to conceal the pregnancy of her second. She gave birth to James in 1965. In 1956, she became one of 9 women accepted to Harvard Law School out of a class of 500. The dean famously asked that his female students tell him how they could justify taking the place of a man. When Marty, also a Harvard Law alumnus, took a job as a tax lawyer in New York, Ginsburg transferred to Columbia Law School. She became the first woman to work at both the College of Law Review as well as Columbia Law School. And she was a teacher to many, many male justices. Despite finishing at the top of her class, she did not receive a single job offer after graduation. Not one law firm in the entire city of New York would employ me, she said. I struck out on 3 grounds. I was Jewish, a woman, and a mother. So she wound up working and studying civil procedure in Sweden before becoming a professor at Rutgers Law School, where she taught some of the first classes on women in law. The women's movement came alive at the end of the 60s, she said to NPR. There I was, a law school professor with time that I could devote to moving along this change. And she did that. She made her first successful argument before the Supreme Court in 1971, where she filed the lead brief in Reed versus Reed, which examined whether men could automatically be preferred over women as state executors. She said, in very recent years, a new appreciation of women's place has been generated in the United States. Activated by feminists on both sexes, courts, legislators have begun to recognize the claim of women to full membership in the class of persons entitled to due process guarantees of life and liberty and equal protection. In 1972, she co-founded the Women's Rights Project at the American Civil Liberties Union. She was soon their general counsel and represented that counsel before the Supreme Court in 6 cases, 5 of which she won. She compared her role to that of a kindergarten teacher explaining gender discrimination to the all-male justices. Her approach was cautious and highly strategic. She later said leading the legal side of the women's movement during this period counted as her greatest professional work. I had the good fortune to be alive in the 60s, then continuing through the 70s. For the first time in history, it became possible to urge before the court successfully that equal justice under law requires all arms of government to regard women as persons equal in stature to men. In 1980, Ginsburg was nominated to the United States Courts of Appeal for the District of Columbia as part of President Jimmy Carter's efforts to diversify federal courts. Though she was often portrayed as a liberal, her days on the appeals court were marked by moderation, and she earned a reputation as a centrist. In 1993, she was nominated to the Supreme Court by President Bill Clinton. Ginsburg was only the second woman ever confirmed to that bench, following Sandra Day O'Connor's nomination by Ronald Reagan in 1981. She was an amazing Supreme Court justice. During her time on the bench, she noticeably moved to the left. She was a counterbalance for some of the more right-wing or conservative members of the court. Her dissents were forceful, sometimes biting. She never shied away from criticizing her colleagues' opinions. She was a force to be reckoned with. In 2015, she really was one of the 6 justices to uphold the crucial component of the Affordable Care Act. She was, as she says, a force to be reckoned with. In the second case, she cited 5-4 majority legalizing same-sex marriage in all 50 states. Her husband was definitely her best friend. She said, or he said about her, "I've learned very early on in our marriage that Ruth was a fairly terrible cook and, for the lack of interest, unlikely to improve. They balanced each other out. He was the one who really pushed for her to become a Supreme Court justice." He died in June 2010 after 56 years of marriage. The next day after his death, she was on the bench at the Supreme Court to read an opinion on the final day of the term because Marty would have wanted that. She later told the New Yorker magazine, "I will live." She had 5 major run-ins with cancer herself. Ginsburg never or only rarely missed oral arguments. She only missed them twice because of her illness. She said, "I will live, not that I hope I will live. I want to live, but I will live." Her longevity brought immense relief to liberal America, which fretted that another vacancy on the court would allow its conservative majority to become more and more apparent during these years. Towards the end of her life, Ginsburg became a national icon, due in part to her dissents, but also in part to that wonderful documentary, the notorious RBG. There she showed us, how do you exercise well into your 80s? How do you live a life of justice? How do you pursue justice? One of her last interviews was with NPR, and she said, "I do think I was born under a very bright star." This year, let's all pursue a little bit of what Justice Ginsburg taught us. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. Pursue justice. We continue now with the blessings after the Haftorah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Sor kol halamim, Sadiq b'kol hadarot, Ha'el hane'amin, Ha'omer v'yoseh, Hamdaber u'mekayem, Shekol darav v'emet v'tzedek, Al haTorah v'al avodah, V'al nevi'im v'al yom ha'kipurim hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Lichnulah u'litzlicha, Likavod u'tifaret, Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, Anachnu modim lach, Umbrachim otach, Yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai, Tamid leolam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, Baruch ata Adonai, Mekadesh Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim. I'm going to pause for 1 second as we put Neilah on to the TV. We begin our service now with Neilah. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yehalucha sela, Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav. Happy are those who dwell in your house, they forever will praise you. Aramimcha Elohai hamelech, Avracha shimcha leolam va'ed, B'chol yom avrachecha, Halala shimcha leolam va'ed. Go to the very last line. V'anachnu nevarek ya, me'ata v'ad olam, hallelujah. Neilah, as we imagine the gates closing, our prayers rising up to the heavens, our last chance to pray for each other, to pray for this world at peace. We begin with the Amidah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Bahanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher Chaste Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava. Zachreinu L'chaim, Melech Efet B'chaim, V'chatvenu B'sefer HaChaim, Lemancha Elohim Chaim. Remember us for life, sovereign God who treasures life. Inscribe us in the book of life for your sake, God of life. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atav rav lehoshiach, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומשמיח ישועה. מי כמוך ברחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי hakol. And we connect to our generations. We say, Ledor vador, Ledor vador, Ledor vador nagid gad lecha, Ledor vador, Ledor vador, Ledor vador nagid gad lecha, ulenetzach nitzachim kedushatecha nakdish, Kiddushachtecha nakdish, v'shevchecha Eloheinu, mihipinu lo yamush, leolam leolam va'ed. From one generation to the next, God, may we declare your greatness, and for all eternities, may we affirm your holiness, and may we praise, may your praise, our God, never be absent from our mouths now and forever, for you are a great and holy God. We take a moment now recognizing the blessings that we have in our life and the blessings that we give to one another. May God bless you and keep you. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May God's presence radiate upon you and grant you graciousness. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May God's presence be with you and grant you peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon. We say this beautiful, beautiful prayer for this holiday. B'sefer Chaim bracha v'shalom u'parnasa tova v'nizker v'nichtev lefanecha anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael l'chaim tovim u'leshalom Baruch ata Adonai oseh hashalom. Keep me far from pettiness and pride, God, from anger and impatience, despair, gossip, and all bad traits. Spare me from jealousy of others. Let not others be jealous of me, nor let me be jealous of others. On the contrary, grant me the ability to see the others' merits and not their faults, to look for the best in others and not think of what makes them a flawed person. Open for us the gates now, God. Pikach lanu sha'ach. Open for us the gates, even as the gates are closing. For daylight fades, the sun is waning. The sun is setting and ebbing away. Let us enter your gates at last. We implore you, O God, please quit, forgive, pardon, be merciful, have compassion, exonerate, restrain sin and iniquity. God, you have taught us to recite these 13 attributes of compassion. Recall for us today this covenant of 13, that you may known to your humble servant of old. As it is written, the Eternal descended in a cloud and stood with him there. And Moses proclaimed the name of the Eternal, and the Eternal passed before him and proclaimed, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed V'Yemet, Norse Chesed Le'elafim, Nose Avon V'Pesha V'Chata'a, And now we begin once again reciting our vidui, our confessionals. First, we just ask God for this. Salach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Forgive us our source, for we have sinned. Pardon us, our sovereign, for we have transgressed. For you are crowned the truly forgiving and abundant in devotion to all who call upon you. We confess as a community, and this piyut, this poem sets that up as we think about who we are in relationship to others. We are together. When one person misses the mark and does something that they wish they hadn't done, we all can take the blame because we all are responsible for one another, especially if we know about what someone's struggling with. So this year, I really don't believe that most of you have done anything wrong, but this year, we look to each other for compassion and caring like what God asks us to be. This year, we need each other more than ever. Ki anu amecha. Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu. Anu vanecha ve'ata avinu. Anu abdecha ve'ata Adonenu. Anu kahalecha ve'ata chelkeinu. Anu nachletcha ve'ata goralenu. Anu sonecha ve'ata ro'enu. Anu charmecha ve'ata notchenu. Anu bahulatecha ve'ata yosrenu. Anu radecha ve'ata dodenu. Anu segulatecha ve'ata kirovenu. Anu amecha ve'ata malkeinu. Anu ma'amrecha ve'ata mamirenu. In English, we read, "For we are your people, and you are our God. We are your children, and you are our parent. We are your servants, and you are our master. We are your flock, and you are our shepherd. We are your creation, and you are our creator. We are your people, and you are our guide. We are your subjects, and you are our ruler." We begin with the Ashamnu prayer. Together, we confess these prayers, and it's customary to take our hand, either pounding our chest or caressing it, saying, "I'm sorry." Lai da dai dai dai, lai da da dai dai dai, lai da da dai dai dai. Ashamnu, bagarnu, gazalnu, dibarnu dofi, lai da dai dai dai, lai da da dai dai dai, lai da da dai dai dai. Hevinu, Birshanu, Zanu, Hamasnu, Tafanu, Sheker, Lai da dai dai dai, Lai da dai dai dai, Lai da da dai dai dai, Yatsnura, Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Saranu, Avinu, Pashanu, Tisarnu, Kishinu, Oref, Lai da dai dai dai, Lai da da dai dai dai, Lai da da dai dai dai, Rashnu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu, Lai da dai dai dai, Lai da da dai dai dai, Lai da da dai dai dai. We have acted wrongly. We have been untrue. And we have gained unlawfully and have defamed. We have harmed others. We have wrought injustice. We have zealously transgressed. And we have hurt and have told lies. We have improperly advised, and we have covered up the truth, and we have laughed in scorn. We have misused responsibility and have neglected others. We have stubbornly rebelled. We have offended. We have perverted justice. We have stirred up enmity, and we have kept ourselves from change. We have reached out to evil. We have shamelessly corrupted and have treated others with disdain. Yes, we have thrown ourselves off course, and we have tempted and misled. We have also done beautiful things this year. With this pandemic, many people have reached out, have touched one another, maybe not physically, but emotionally, have kept in touch, have been gracious and thankful to our staff and employees. We have loved, we have blessed, we have grown, we have spoken positively, we have raised up, we have shown compassion, we have acted enthusiastically, we have been empathetic, we have cultivated truth, we have given good advice, we have respected, we have learned from one another, and we have forgiven each other. We have comforted, we have been creative, we have stirred, we have been spiritual activists, we have been just, we have longed for Israel, we have been merciful, we have given full effort, we have supported each other, we have contributed, we have repaired the world. And now we truly cry out to God, Avinu Malkeinu, I'm going to open the ark. We each had that opportunity to come to the ark, to cry out to God. What would you be pleading to God for today? Take a moment and think about that, imagining we were all here together. The ark was open, and you had a minute or so to privately come up to the ark to say to God, Avinu Malkeinu, oh God, our parent, I'm asking for this. Avinu Malkeinu, chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata. Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, we have no sovereign but you. Avinu Malkeinu, send complete healing to all the sick. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of good life. Avinu Malkeinu, chanenu v'yanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, chanenu v'yanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, chanenu v'yanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Avinu Malkeinu, be gracious and answer us, for we have little merit. Treat us generously and with kindness, and be our help. And Neilah, there are so many images that we have of this day, images of finality, the gates that are closing, the book that is sealed, the judgment that is handed down on Israel and the world. All the outward images are of urgency, of decision, of the last chance to escape to safety, as if we see thousands of souls streaming toward the closing gates, desperately trying to get in before those gates slam. That is part of the truth of these last moments, and yet there is also another, an inner dimension. In today's fragmented world, it is not easy to know where the truth of our Jewish task lies. but we should not be fooled by the feelings of the moment, or even perhaps the absence of such feelings. For the journey through Yom Kippur was a real journey, one to be measured not by what we feel when it's over, but really by how we lead our lives, the days and the weeks and the years from now, when the final shofar blast has pierced not only the highest reach of the heavens, but the deepest reach of our souls. And together we get ready for that final blast. We say these 3 lines, the Shema once, Baruch Shem Kavod 3 times, and Adonai, Hua Elohim 7 times. So together with me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And like the angels, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. And 7 times Adonai, Hua Elohim, Adonai is God, starting at a softer voice, leading to a louder voice. Adonai, Hua Elohim, 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 Adonai, Hua Elohim. We say now to each other, next year in Jerusalem, Lishana Haba'a, Be-Yerushalayim, Lishana Haba'a, Yerushalayim, Lishana Haba'a, Be-Yerushalayim, Lishana Haba'a, Be-Yerushalayim. We say that not because physically we're going to be in Jerusalem, but the hope is that Jerusalem will be restored to be a city of shalom, of peace. And when Jerusalem is a city of peace, then the world will be at peace. And that's what we work towards. Continue now, my friends, with the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגאיי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad. Throughout the day, throughout this holiday period, we are so connected in our hearts and souls with our loved ones who are no longer physically in this world, but who are always part of us. So before we conclude this Neilah, the end of Yom Kippur, we are once again reminded of their presence inspired by their lives. Together with me, we'll do the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba, v'yoma divrach hirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, chayechon v'yom echon v'chayet kol Beit Yisrael, bagola u'bizman kariv v'yimru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach leolam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalel v'yitalal shemei tekudasha b'riachu. La'ela ula'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata dame ram v'yoma v'yimru, amen. Yehi shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world, to which we say, amen. And we'll end with that beautiful, beautiful last line. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. And now the custom is we should go outside for a second. We take a nail, piece of wood, and a hammer. We begin right now building the sukkah. We go from this place of internal spiritual uplifting joy of this Yom Kippur to the place of physical joy. We'll do that tomorrow. Shana Tova. May we all be inscribed in a book of living fully like Ruth Bader Ginsburg taught us, to live life as fully as we possibly can, being there for each other. Shana Tova.